Security Halt podcast is proudly sponsored by Titans Arms. Head to the episode description and check out Titans Arms today.
Small victories.
Small wins, man. You know, I want to know if anybody on a team still dips or if it's all Zen now.
I feel like some of like the crusty dudes probably still do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, the fire station life is very similar to team room life. And for the most part, like everybody's Zens. But there's always like a few guys that are like still like packing Red Man, except it's got like a new name now because we have to be politically correct. It's called like, I forget what it is. It's like America's
Indigenous
Best
man.
something. Yeah.
I was always a fan of Levi Garrett.
Yeah. That got me through FCT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
Remember like the little like one room shopette that was on Camp McCall?
Yeah, dude.
I would go there and get Levi Garrett and it would get me through patrols. So, yeah.
Oh, I just recently found out that it's not they don't have SUT anymore. It's tax skills.
Is it the same thing, just a new name?
I guess it's same but different. I guess they frown upon just marching out into the middle of nowhere and just having you be miserable on ambush recox for 48 hours.
Yeah. Okay. So now they like go do an ambush or do a recon, then come back and refit.
Yeah, maybe. Like if it's like the older, it's just like now we're part of the older crew. Like, oh, I wish we had it so nice.
Yeah. I was in the last hard class. I went through it. It was hard. Yeah.
Zach, welcome to Security Halt, man. How you doing, dude?
Good. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Dude, absolutely, man. Shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Jerry Harrison, the man that's responsible for making a vast majority of us at 7th Group a little cooler through his phenomenal artwork. He reached out and he was like, dude, you got to have this guy on. I was like, bet, say no more.
Yeah, we've actually talked about you while I was sitting there getting poked for an article on in. Yeah, that's how I found your podcast, was through him.
Nice, dude. Such a great dude, man. I can't say enough great things. I'm just honestly, I feel so blessed that life brought me to Florida, brought Jerry to my life, and to have somebody that you can just go to for a tattoo but walk away from with so many life lessons, man. The guy literally, like, it, I don't know, man, it's therapeutic. It really is, being able to sit down in his chair and just hear some of the wisdom and see his wins, man. Like his new path in life and finally leaning into like really living into his creative and artistic abilities.
Absolutely.
It's motivating me. It motivates the shit out of me. And to see somebody you care and love finally say, you know what, I'm going to fucking lean into my love, into my abilities and go after my dreams. Like, it lets all of us know, if you're willing to sit down and listen to his story, it lets you know that it's never too late, that you deserve to go after your dreams too, man.
Has he been brave? Has he been on the show?
Yeah. As soon as I can get back to Florida, I'm going to be able, hopefully, be able to build another in-person studio and bring him right back on, man. Because honestly, before he retires from tattooing officially, I want to get my hands and my neck done, and then have somebody recording there so that we can talk
while doing it. That'd be awesome.
Oh,
yeah, I wanna do the throat so bad. It's just like it's such a leap, you know. Like,
yeah.
I've been trying to figure out, you know, working at the fire department now. I asked a couple guys, I was like, do we have a tattoo policy? And they're like, I don't think we do. And I was like, cool, because I'm gonna get my throat tattooed. They're like, that might be pushing it. And
where's the rule book?
Exactly. It wasn't in the policy. And yeah, or I just wear turtlenecks for the next 15 years.
That's the firefighter I want saving me. If you don't show up in a turtleneck to pull me out of my car and save my life, I don't want you.
Especially like in this Louisiana heat right now, it's like 96 degrees with 95% humidity. Show a full turtleneck.
But dude, You could totally rock it if you cut off the sleeves. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, dude, how do you go from Green Beret to firefighter and then to doing, you know, impossible trips on your bike, man? Like, I want to dive into this story because it's a little bit of crazy, a little bit of the sua sponte and the oppresso liber spirit, and the Green Beret mentality of like, it's easy enough, I can do it.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Like, how did this journey begin, man?
Um, shoot, should we start at the beginning,
At the
like
very beginning, all the way back, bro.
becoming a Green Beret?
Yeah.
All right. So I joined the Army at 18 years old, and honestly, it was a ticket out of Indiana where I grew up. Indiana's not the most exciting state, but I grew up in a military family, and my dad's last duty station was in Indiana, and he retired when I was young. I was probably like 10 or so when he retired. And it was never like pushed on me or like even mentioned that I should go into the military. When I made that decision at 18 years old, he actually was like, "Yeah, you don't need to go in the army." He did 3 tours in Vietnam, and so he was like, "I did that so that you don't have to." And I was like, "Dad, I respect that." I was like, "But I'm 18 years old, so you can either help me with this process or I can go do it on my own." He was like, "Okay, I'm gonna help you." So he called a buddy of his was a recruiter in Indianapolis, and so guy came over to the house, we talked, came in on an artillery contract initially as a 13 Mike MLRS crew member. Um, and the reason I did that was because they offered me a bonus, a decent sized bonus for an 18-year-old kid. It was like $14,000, and that was like $1 million in my mind. So I was like, shit. And I got station of choice and I wanted to go over to Europe, do the whole Germany thing. So that's what I initially came in on. After 2 years, I was like, this job ain't for me. So
What about that profession just didn't suit you?
um, just, I don't want to say all of the guys that were there, but like, I don't know. I just didn't like, it wasn't exciting enough for me. Like, didn't MLRS, if for those that aren't familiar, is a tank that launches long range missiles. So you're not like in the fight. You're a couple kilometers away shooting missiles. And I wanted to be like on the ground,
Yeah.
like looking in the face of the enemy. And so I started looking at reclass options, and 13, 11. Like I originally wanted to go 11 Bravo all along, but my dad was way against that because that's what
Yeah.
he did. And but 13 Fox was an option at that point. And now I'm on the other side of the world in Germany, so dad's not really involved in the decision making process. So I went 13 Fox with the hope that I would get attached to a light infantry unit and kind of get to be in there. And this was early 2000s when shit was still pretty hot and heavy. And so I did. I reclassed to 13 Fox, got assigned to 10th Mountain Division. Was never in an FA unit with 10th Mountain Division. I was always assigned to an infantry regiment and deployed with them, and then re-enlisted to go back to Germany. And over there I got DA selected. I was an E6 at this point. um, DA selected to be WTU cadre.
Mm.
And, you got special duty pay if you were DA selected. So that was kind of cool. Got some extra money, but the job just wore me out. Because the Warrior Transition Unit was a place for wounded soldiers that were transitioning out of the army to get all their medical care before they transitioned out. Great idea, bad execution. What it turned into was a bunch of commanders getting rid of malingers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was more of like an adult babysitting position.
Ugh.
So I was like, okay. here we are again. I need to find a way out. And I had recently read an article in the Army Times about, I believe it was either some third group guys or fifth group guys, and a Silver Star ceremony, and told like the whole write up of why they were getting the Silver Star and everything. And I had worked when I was in 10th Mountain. We had three soldiers that were captured in the middle of the night, and one of them was found a couple weeks later. Two of them were missing for over a year. And, I was assigned to 431 infantry at the time, and, we had some SF guys come for the Dust One looking for those guys for a couple months with us, and that was my first exposure to SF. And then I read this article, and it just kept kinda popping up in my head that I was like, "I wanna see what I'm capable of. I wonder
Mm,
if I can make it." And so I spent, like, 6 months really training hard. I lived off base, and I was rucking to and from work every day,
shit.
putting 45 pounds on my back. There was a 3-mile route to the front gate that I would take to work and then go to PT and then work the whole day, and then at the end of the day, there was a 9-mile route home out the back gate. And so I did that every day.
Damn.
Just getting miles on my feet and weight on my back. Started really working on my run times and everything. That's what I did to prep for selection for 6 months. And then went to selection, was successful, PCS to brag, went through the Q course, no recycles, and then got assigned to seventh group. And um, so yeah, that's kind of the story of how I ended up in SF. Was it was a challenge to myself to just, I wanted to know what my limits were. Like, even
Yep.
if I didn't make it, I was gonna find out where my shortcomings were, and now I've got something to grow upon, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So that's kinda how I got into SF, and then, I loved every minute of it. The camaraderie was the most appealing part to me. I mean, I loved the mission of the special forces also, or the multiple missions that we cover. But the guys to my left and my right and how close you get, and how much, like, it's trauma bonding, even when you're
Yeah.
not deployed, like going through like training exercises, J sets, anything like that, like the hard days, at the end of the day, you're back in the team room and you're having a beer together. And it creates a bond that is really hard to get anywhere else.
So true.
Yeah. So I loved every minute of that. Unfortunately, it got cut a little bit short. I would have loved to have stayed there and finished out 20 plus years. After 10 and a half years, though, I was medically separated, and, too many knocks to the head.
Mm.
While we were in Afghanistan one day, we were out on a 72-hour op, and I think it was the night before the last day. Um, I went down and had a seizure.
Oh shit.
Yeah, just out of the blue. It's kind of a funny story, actually. Um,
Only a Green Beret would say that.
so like we had been going for 2 days, and we were setting up our little OP position, overwatching this village that we were gonna be going into the next day, looking for any squirters that were gonna try to run that night before we came in. And we had 3 trucks up there parked in a triangle formation and bedding down, pulling off cots off the RG-33 to sleep for the night. And after we set up, my team sergeant said, "Hey, make a guard roster," because we had some uplift guys with us. He's like, "Make the guard roster for the night and then bed down." So I made the guard roster, went around, told everybody what their shift was, and then I was like, "I gotta take a crap." So I walked like 50 meters from the trucks. There was a little berm there. Walked to the other side of the berm, did my business so that I could go to bed. The last thing I remember is my senior Bravo was up on top of the RG-33 and could see me, and he thought it would be fun to embarrass me, so he's like, "Hey, everybody, look, Garner's pooping. Garner's pooping." Haha, very funny. And then I was walking back to the truck, and I remember I've gotta get my rucksack was up on top of the truck, and I was like, "I'm gonna grab a change of socks and a fresh T-shirt, change those, and then go to sleep." Next thing I know, I was on the ground with an IV in and woke up kinda panicked, and they told me, "Hey, the bird's coming, you're medevac," and I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, you were having a seizure." And, so apparently, I nobody saw it start. Um, I had a concussion afterwards too, which was never really investigated why I had this concussion, but I was definitely concussed, horrible headache when I woke up, and that was my biggest complaint was, like, my head is killing me. I think I climbed up on top of that RG-33 or on my way up it, slipped and fell and hit my head.
Mm.
But what happened was our bomb dog started barking and alerting on me, and that drew attention, and they were like, "Is Zach okay?" And I was just on the ground, just seizing.
Oh shit.
And, my medic initially was like, "He's messing with the dog," because, we played jokes,
Yeah.
and they thought I was faking the whole thing, just trying to get the dog riled up. And, then he came over after, like, 5 minutes or so of me still doing this, and he's like, "Zach's not smart enough to know how to fake a seizure this well." And that's when he realized I was having a seizure, and so he sticks me, gets some fluids going, eventually seizing stopped, that's when the medevac happened. They flew me back to CAF. Um, Initially, once I was in there, our docs came in, the SF docs, our battalion doc in PA, and they kicked everybody else out of the room. And they're like, "Hey, we're not going to call this a seizure. We're going to say that you passed out from dehydration because that's a career ender." Um, so they were like, "We're just going to hope this was a one off thing and it doesn't happen again." And I finished out the deployment. We only had a month left with no issues. But then when I got home, I had a second one and then a third
Mm.
one. And so eventually I went in for a brain scan and they found out they were diagnosed me with epilepsy. And
Fuck.
they offered to let me stay in group, but transition to a desk job for 2 years. And if we could get the seizures under control, then I could go back to a team. So we started anti-epileptic medications, and it took a while to figure out what medications were going to work to control my seizures. So every time I would have a seizure, that 2-year timeline would restart. And eventually it just got to the point where I was like, I'm sick of waiting to see if I'm going to ever go back to a job that I love. And I definitely didn't want to work a desk job.
Yeah.
So, so I was like, let's just go ahead and do a med board. So I got out, didn't have a ton of a plan. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't anything exciting. It was like something to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so I decided let's try to figure this out. I knew one thing that I was super passionate about at this point was trying to find anti-pharmaceutical answers to the epilepsy because the medication that worked to stop my seizures was successful in that. However, it caused all sorts of side effects. And the VA's answer to that was let's just put you on more meds to counteract those side effects.
It's always their options.
Yeah.
It's always like, well, option A, we're gonna give you this. Well, now it creates all these different things. Like, okay, well, we'll just keep giving you more pharmaceutical
Yeah.
interventions.
So at one point I was on like 15 meds. One of them was for seizures, and the rest of them were to counteract side effects or side effects of those medications. So because it was like, I was like, well, the medication that stopped my seizures, one of the known side effects is causing psychosis. And so they're like, okay, well, we're just going to put you on some antidepressants and some benzos. And so then I was like, okay, I feel like a zombie all the time. So then they're like, okay, here's some Adderall. So that during the day you can be on uppers. And then at nighttime, your benzos will help you come down from that and put you to sleep. And I was like, this is stupid. There's got to be another way. Well, the VA sent me for a neuro scan with a third party doctor outside the VA system who also happened to be a cannabis prescriber in Minneapolis. And this was 2015, so it was still like a little bit taboo, you know? But he mentioned, he's like, hey, the VA portion of our appointment is done. But I want to talk to you about something. He is like, have you ever thought about cannabis to treat your epilepsy? And I was like, not really. And he's like, well, there's some strains, CBD strains that are specifically studied for seizures. And I think it would pull you off a lot of these medications. It might be worth looking into. So I did. And I found a company that did like an oral tincture that I could take. And I just started weaning myself off the seizure meds and was like, let's see what happens. And at this point, like I was so fed up with the seizure meds, I was either going to end up dead or in jail, because it was just giving me such rage and I was so quickly irritated and aggravated with other people. Like, if you cut me off on traffic, I'm following you to your house ready to fight,
Jeez.
which is not who I typically am.
Yeah, the
Like,
person that I'm talking to right now is not coming across like
yeah.
you're the most mellow, chill dude ever.
But I mean, like, just rage to the extreme, and it was coming out at my family, at my friends, everybody, and I was like, "I would rather be dead than be this person." So there were those thoughts going through my head too, you know? So I was like, "Fuck it, let's try it," and it worked. So then, I was like, "Man, we gotta start breaking down this stigma." We got to start talking about this and try to open up some people's eyes, because it was, non-psychoactive, so it wasn't like I was walking around stoned all day, um, but it worked. And so I was still trying to figure out, like, where am I going in life? And so I ended up, deciding, I had always been a cyclist and had also realized, like, the importance of, like, getting outside and being physically active was beneficial to my mental health, and so I was like, "Let's incorporate all this." So, I came up with this idea to ride a bicycle from Washington State to Florida, going through every active duty SF base across the US, which is not a direct route across the US.
It is most
Um,
certainly not.
yeah, kinda zigzagged my way across. Um, but I did, fundraising events and spoke about non-pharmaceutical medication at each of those. At this time, the Army wasn't really wanting to have that conversation, so we did it at venues outside, but advertised the event at venues that veterans frequent off base, to try to get attendance there. And it was a really good success. We raised a lot of money for a nonprofit that was interested in this, Task Force Dagger. And they were the first nonprofit that helped me out as I was transitioning out of the Army. And it was the initial thing that I had with them was a very small gesture to them, but huge to me. I needed lodging for like a week because I had rented out my house in Florida and was moving to Minneapolis, but I had like a week before I finalized out of the Army. And they were just like, hey, we'll take care of your hotel room for that week. And so they paid the bill for the hotel room to help me
Hell
out.
yeah.
And I just wanted to give back to them, for that. And so I was like, I'm going to do this bike ride. Let me see if we can raise some money for you guys in the process. Um, so I did. So I rode a bike from Washington State to Florida, raised some money for their nonprofit, talked about things that were that I was passionate about. And then that led to a job coaching endurance athletes afterwards. And so I kind of found my purpose, like not even necessarily searching for my purpose. Like I
Yeah.
went, it was just like, I want to help this nonprofit out and I want to ride a bike and I want to see America. I had never seen the Rockies before that.
Really?
Yeah. I had never been up to the Northwest in my entire life. I was 30 years old and was like, let's see what this is all about. So it was like in so many different aspects, it was like a really eye-opening adventure and it helped me find my purpose, which was coaching endurance athletes at that time and getting people outside and getting people active that were struggling with mental health issues. Um, so that happened, and then I was coaching some triathletes, and I was a cyclist, I wasn't a triathlete. I actually hate running, and the Army took that out of me.
I'm
So,
starting to fall back in love with it, even though my body still fucking hates it.
you know,
Um,
it's coming back to me, and as we'll get to in a few minutes, I recently did another big bike trip, and I lost 20 pounds during that bike trip, and my body likes running a lot more now that I'm 20 pounds lighter. Um, so I was coaching endurance athletes. I wanted to understand like psychologically where triathletes' heads were at. So I started getting into triathlons myself for that. And I was doing a half Ironman in Minnesota and got hit by a car.
what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
fuck.
So on the bike portion, I was, I don't know, 35 miles or so into the bike portion, and I was in 3rd place. And just it was shitty weather and came through an intersection that was supposed to be controlled by a cop. It was raining. He was still in his car, not expecting people to be going through yet, just trying to stay dry till he needed to get out in the rain. And as I was coming, a car came in front of me, and I just met that car right in the middle of the intersection. And, and I kinda saw it coming, like, as I was approaching the intersection, but we were briefed that every intersection would be clearly marked, and we would be given the right of way.
Yeah.
Those things weren't in place. And, by the time I realized that this car was coming, it was too late. With the wet asphalt, if I had tried to stop, I probably would have slid into the intersection and that car would have gone right over.
Yeah.
So I made the split-second decision that, like, let's just pray for the best, and I kinda shifted my body in the seat so that I didn't face plant directly into the car. I, um, I kinda went over the handlebars and rolled over, and the windshield launched me straight up in the air. And I remember, like, after the impact with the car, like, it felt like I had all the time in the world, and I was like, "Okay, that wasn't that bad." I'm still conscious, like, if my bike's okay, we can get back on the bike, and I'm still gonna catch
Fuck.
2nd and 1st place in front of me. But then I saw the sky for, like, the 8th time because I was just cartwheeling through the sky. And again, I felt like I had all the time in the world to process this, and I was like, "Fuck, this part's really gonna suck when I find the ground." And then I did find the ground, and it was lights out immediately.
Oh, that's not that bad. Oh no, it is that fucking bad.
It's like, I'm really high off the ground. Yeah, and so I impacted head first and kind of scorpioned. So yeah, I hit right on like left side of my face, forehead area. cracked my helmet, and lights out. I woke up in the ambulance. I had fractured my L5, and then my right hip was impacted by that A pillar that connects the windshield and the driver's side door. Um, so initially, the medics' priority is the head injury and the back injury. So they had me on a spine board, neck brace. Um, didn't know where I was. I actually, they were like, "Is there anybody we should call?" And I gave them my ex-wife's phone number, thinking I gave them my current wife's phone number. Um, so
Yikes.
yeah, and but I realized it, like, as they were on the phone, and I was like, "Hang that phone up. She's not gonna care."
She's gonna be like, yeah, do not resuscitate.
Yeah, he has a DNR. Yeah. So yeah, I, they got me to the hospital, they're working everything, um, shot me up with fentanyl once I got there, and that was the first time I realized why people get addicted to pain medication. Um, and it's funny, but people were like, "What did it feel like?" And I'm like, "It immediately felt like I was surrounded by cuddly puppies and boobs, like, I was just in, like, the happiest place in the world." Um
It's the best day of my life.
And I like, as they did it, though, I was like, "Oh, that's why people get addicted to these drugs."
That makes sense.
Um, so then a couple hours later, they're stitching up my head, and I was like, "Guys, something's not right in the like, my right hip." And they're like, "Well, we did body scan, like a complete body scan. You don't have anything. You don't have a broken femur or a broken hip, but you were hit by a car. It's not gonna feel great." So they just gave me some more pain meds. Hour later, I'm like, "It's still not touching it. Like, it's getting worse." Like, at this point, like, you know, probably the Green Beret in me is being stubborn. So I'm not gonna tell them I'm at a 10 when they ask, like, "Where's your pain at?" I'm like, "Oh, it's like a 6, but it really doesn't feel great." And they're like, "Okay, here's some more pain medication." My buddy who owned the gym that I coached at, he pulled them outside and he's like, "Hey, this isn't your regular patient. He's not ever gonna tell you it's at a 10. But if he's telling you it's bad, you need to treat it like it's at a 10." And so at that point, they're like, "Okay, let's go do another scan." So they did another CT scan and they compared that to the first one, and they could see how much fluid was building up in my hip and leg. And they were like, "Oh shit, this guy has compartment syndrome." So they come in with some paperwork and they're like, "Hey, sign these releases. We're taking you to emergency surgery right now." So off I went. Anesthesia, knocked out, woke up, immediately looked at my right leg and had like an 18-inch incision.
This episode is brought to you by Titan SARMs. Head on over to titansarms.com and buy a stack today. Use my code CDenny10 to get your first stack. I recommend the Lean Stack 2. Start living your best life. Titan SARMs. No junk, no bullshit, just results.
And it wasn't even closed up. It was packed with wound
Just,
racks
yeah.
and just covered. And I was like, "Oh man." And I was like, "How long was I in surgery for?" They're like, "About 8 hours." They said you had a lot of trauma to that. They're like, "I don't know how you didn't break any bones, but you essentially popped everything else around your bones." Um, So, was in the hospital for, like, 10 days, with the wound vac in, sucking all that stuff out until it finally the inflammation went down enough that they could close it up, and then they sent me with a bag full of narcotics. Um, so I went home, they weren't sure, they were like, "You're probably gonna have some really bad nerve damage, we don't know what's gonna be after this." Um, Luckily, I had a full recovery though, and I went into it like, I never refilled pain meds after that. I went into it knowing, like, I need to get off these because at this point in my life, I had seen a lot of people in our community
Yes.
that were injured, started with a legit prescription. Once that prescription was cut off, they went to whatever they could find, and I didn't wanna become a part of that statistic, so I went into it with a mental plan of getting out of it? Um, so I lucked out in that sense that time. Then at that point I said, "Screw bikes." Like, it's no longer fun. It's like bikes were like therapy for me, like it was
Yeah.
an outlet. But it stopped being that way because when I would get on the road and ride and cars were around, I was just too paranoid. So it's like, okay, we need to kind of start over and find a new purpose, find a new career. So I went as every good Green Beret does, not everyone, but I went where the money was, which was contracting.
Yeah.
And so I rehabbed myself enough to go past the physical, all the physical tests and everything. And I started contracting overseas again. And I did that for a number of years up until 2020.
So quite a while. Damn.
Yeah, did that for a bit. Because at this point it was 2016 when the car accident happened. Then got into contracting, did that until 2020, and then COVID hit early 2020, and I came home, and shortly after I got home, Jerry might get mad at me for telling the story, but it actually had nothing to do with Jerry. It was my stupidity. I had gone and gotten some tattoo work done by Jerry. Um, I was working on a leg sleeve, and everything shut down in Florida, and I get stir crazy if I sit still too long. So I was out in the Gulf, like paddleboarding and hanging out or in the bay actually.
Yeah.
I was over in the bay. I live right off of Black Creek in Freeport, if you know where that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that empties out into the bay. And so I was like spending my days out paddleboarding, hanging out, didn't let the tattoo quite heal all the way.
No.
So some dirty water had gotten in there, and one morning I woke up and I wasn't initially like, "Oh shit, I have an infection in my leg." It was just like stiff in my knee joint and a little bit swollen and red. So I went to urgent care. I thought honestly that like a spider or something had bitten
Bit
me
you.
while I was asleep. Because I like, did the whole WebMD Google Doc thing, and it was like, yeah, it's probably an insect bite or something. So I went in, they ran some labs, and they're like, everything's coming back normal. They're like, we think maybe you have some bursitis. So they gave me a steroid injection, sent me home. A couple days later, my knee's like the size of a basketball. And I like can't put weight on it or anything. So I went to the emergency room this time or I went to an orthopedic doc and he took one look at it and he goes, "That's infected." And he said, "We're gonna call the hospital. I'm gonna call them while you're driving over there." He's like, "They're gonna admit you and start you on IV antibiotics tonight." And I was like, "All right, inconvenient, but whatever." He's like, "We caught this early." He's like, "Probably a week of you being on IV antibiotics, we can send you home, but we need to keep an eye on this for the next couple days to make sure it doesn't spread and get worse." So I went in, they hooked me up. After like 3 days, it was still getting worse. At this point, it's like my hip to my ankle is ugly and nasty. And so they're like, "We're gonna go ahead and open that leg up and see what it looks like inside." So knock me out, do a little exploratory incision. 30 minutes later, I'm awake and I'm thinking like, "Oh, it must not have been that bad." Well, the doc comes in, he's like, "Hey, it's bad." He's like, we cut your leg open and it immediately looked like dirty dishwater was just spilling out of your leg. So he's like, we stopped because we need to plan for major surgery tomorrow to
Oh
open the
shit.
leg up. So they open up my entire left leg, and they're doing washout and debridements. It was flesh-eating bacteria is what was going on in there. So they're cleaning all the dead flesh out. Yeah, keeping
Oh
me round the
fuck,
clock
dude.
antibiotics, just trying to keep it from spreading outside of my leg. It wasn't getting any better after, they're doing washout debridements like every 3 or 4 days for weeks, and I'm in the hospital as an inpatient this whole time, narcotics straight into the vein. They're just keeping me very medicated so
Yeah.
that I'm not.
Because that I gotta imagine that's incredibly painful if you're just raw dogging that. Like,
Yeah. They, after the surgeries were so invasive from scraping all that dead tissue out that when the anesthesia wore off, they would give me ketamine so that I wouldn't go into shock. And then as the ketamine wore off, they would adjust the fentanyl drip to keep me from going into shock. Oh, yeah, it was wild. So I was, like, tripping out of my mind, which was honestly kind of like, there's a reason they use ketamine for therapy.
but yeah, yeah.
Um, so I didn't have a therapist there, but I started, like, journaling as I came out of it, like, what happened on the other side, if you will, and was working through some, like, life stuff at the same time. So so that was pretty
Just
wild.
you're just sitting there, your legs just fucking getting tore out, and it's like, dear diary.
Yeah, yeah, and then the best part was, like, I needed somebody to talk to about this, so, like, if you could be the nurse, you could be the janitor that's just coming in to clean the bathroom. The
Yes.
first person I saw when I woke up, I'm like, "Sit down, we're talking about life."
Because if you've experienced ketamine therapy, like it brings up a lot. You're like, I need to talk. I need a
Yeah,
journal. There, you have
yeah.
to reflect some things. It's like, hello, I'm here for the trash. No, no, no. Sit down, Jose. I gotta dive into last year. Holy shit, dude.
So
Oh my gosh.
So that was wild. But after a couple weeks, they were like, "This isn't working," because it had spread into my bones and into my
Oh
blood,
man.
and so it was eating away my pelvis. It started eating my bicep tendon off of my left arm. Um, so they're like, "Yeah, this obviously isn't working." So, and then it got into my heart. At this
Holy
point,
shit.
VA, I'm under VA healthcare. So the VA had said I'd been in the hospital at this point for like 2, 3 months. And they're like, the hospital I was at Sacred Heart down in Sandestin.
Yeah.
And then they transferred me to Fort Walton Beach because that's like a step up from Sacred Heart. And they're like, we've done everything that we can do here. He needs to go to like, a Mayo Clinic or like a big hospital that out of Florida. And the VA was like, now we've spent enough money. We're not going to approve it. So they were like, what we will approve is sending him to an assisted living facility, a fucking nursing home. And I'm
What
30,
the fuck?
and I'm 35 years old. They essentially just were like, let's put him on hospice care till he
Hospice
dies.
care.
Yeah. Um, so
Holy shit.
yeah. So luckily a nonprofit that's associated with who I was contracting for at the time reached out and said, "Hey, we have a trauma team up in Boston at Mass General that you're going to have the best doctors available and that you need. If anybody can get this under control, it's there." And so um I got a private jet because this is peak COVID. This is like September of 2020. I'm running because of the infection, I'm running 104, 105-degree fevers. They're not gonna let me get on a plane, and I look sick, you know? So private jet flies me up to Boston, go to the hospital, and they check me in inpatient there, and now I've got all these specialists working on me, and they treated it from, like, ground zero. Like, they didn't care what the doctors in Florida did. They're like, "We're gonna run our own tests. We're gonna come up with our own plan." We were able to eventually get it under control, but not
How
before
long
I
did it
had.
take for them to actually like fight back and get this under control? Because at this point, it's in your fucking blood, your arm. Like, fuck,
So,
dude.
this all started in June of 2020. I was released from inpatient care permanently. I had some periods that they let me out, but then back in, uh, released permanently, I wanna say in April of 21, so 10 months, and
Fuck.
it was over 30 surgeries. I had 2 strokes. I died twice in the hospital, coded, and they brought me back. Um, but April of 2021 was, like, when I was finally, like, permanently released from inpatient care in the hospital. Um,
Zach, I
and
gotta ask, are you a believer? Are you a man of faith? Dude,
yes,
this
yeah,
this
yeah.
journey is insane.
Yeah, I mean, they were telling me in the hospital, they're like, we don't know that you're gonna walk out of here." Like, not just not walk, "We don't know that you're gonna leave this hospital alive." And then they were like, "And if you do, you're probably not gonna be the same person because of all the trauma that's been done to your leg, your pelvis, your arm, like, you're gonna have some adapting to life." Um And then not to mention, like, I was now definitely addicted to narcotics after 10 months of just IV narcotics around the clock. So I got out, and realized, like, I had some periods while I was in the hospital to not to get. I hate trying, like, when it sounds like I'm trying to play the victim, so I hope this doesn't come across this way. But I just got sick of fighting, and I got sick
Absolutely,
of
dude.
being a burden to those around. Like, I don't ever, like, even now, like, as a firefighter, like, I see old people that are, like, in rough shape, and their families are, like, doing everything to keep them alive, and I'm like, do that for me. Like, if I'm once I get to the point where, like, I can't go to the bathroom and I have to wear diapers and I need somebody to come change those diapers and I need somebody to pick me up to get me out of bed, like, just let it run its course.
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
know,
Same,
um,
same.
and so I had gotten to a point where I was just like, I'm done. Like, and I started, like, cheeking my medications to
Shit.
save them up and then take, like, 10 days worth of narcotics in one time to hope that I not because I was trying to get super high, but because
No,
I
try to.
hoping to not wake up tomorrow, and laying in bed and praying to not wake up tomorrow, and I kept waking up every day, and being disappointed that I woke up. And you can only do that for so long till it's like, "All right, we need to obviously change our mindset around this." Because I can't die, apparently. I feel like I definitely should have been able to. But for some reason, I was still here. And so I was like, "All right, let's figure it out." And so I made it my mission then to just prove the doctors wrong. We are gonna leave this hospital, and not only am I gonna leave, I'm gonna come back fucking stronger. And so then I just really started going back to, like, okay, we need to get out of this mental funk and be work on, like, coming back, the return.
Yeah, dude.
And so I really started diving into physical therapy and just getting active and working on the recovery piece and then getting out. And it was a process, but working off getting off all the meds. Um, and was able to do it. And so then it was like, okay, a period of adjusting just back into normal life. But then I started to go through some depression again, and anxiety was at an all-time high. And so I flashed back to that 2015 bike ride and how important it was to find a purpose. And so I knew like the happiest I've ever been career-wise was when I was in the service. And that wasn't an option
This episode is also brought to you by Precision Wellness Group. Getting your hormones optimized shouldn't be a difficult task, and Dr. Taylor Bosley has changed the game. Head on over to precisionwellnessgroup.com, enroll, and become a patient today.
to go back. The military is not going to take me back now at 36 years old, had 2 strokes, had 30 surgeries on my legs. Like, MEPS isn't going to fucking pass that packet through. So, um, even though like I knew I was like, I could go still be a Green Beret. Like, I guarantee I could still do it, but they're not ever going to let this happen. So what do I do? I had always thought about being a firefighter, and it's different. You're not necessarily of service to your country, but you're of service to your immediate community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was like, well, let's see what happens. And I kind of sat on it for like a year though, because I was afraid of being told I couldn't do it because of medical history
Yeah.
or like because of my military service. I was gonna fail the psych eval or something, and I didn't want to hear those words. I didn't want to not be accepted. So
Yeah.
I sat on it for a year before I finally was like, fuck it, we don't know unless we try. So I found a department that was willing to hire an old dude. Um, because some of them won't. If you're over, I think the cutoff's like 30 or 34 or something.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it has to do with, like, the retirement system, like, you're not eligible
Oh,
for retirement, so they can't hire you.
that's so dumb.
So, yeah, it's silly. But I found one that this department has their own retirement system, and they're a reputable department, they're a decent sized department. I didn't wanna go to, like, some rural place where I was just gonna sit in a station all day and, like, once a week might have
Yeah.
a call.
Get a
I wanna
cat out of a tree.
Yeah, yeah. So I found a department and they took a risk on me and they were excited to have me and went through the fire academy, about a 6-month academy, and then started working as a full-time firefighter. And I love it. But prior to that, I was like, the other thing back to finding purpose is I wanna impact that community that I came from some more, the soft community, and we were coming up on the 10-year anniversary of when I did that initial cross-country bike ride, and, I had always had, like, this bucket list dream of mountain biking from Canada to Mexico along the Continental Divide. It's called the Great Divide Mountain Bike Race. It goes on every year. It starts in Banff, Canada, and finishes at the Antelope Wells, New Mexico border crossing. And I'd always wanted to do this, and so I was like, my daughter's graduating high school, and this is the time to do it. And so I had been training and prepping for that as I was applying to the fire department, so they hired me. I went through the academy, and then like the last week of the academy, I went to the fire chief's office and was like, "Hey, so about to graduate next week, and I kind of have this plan to go mountain bike the Continental Divide. Can I have a month off?" And I told him it was for a veteran nonprofit, and I had also linked in a first responder nonprofit to raise money for those 2 charities, and so he was like, "Yeah, I've got no problem with it," and he said, "But you don't have any vacation days. How do you plan to do this?" And I was like, "I'll take time without pay. I
Yeah.
just wanna make sure I have a job to come back to at the end of it." And he was like, "Yeah, I got no problem with that." Well, then some of my direct supervisors, once I got assigned to a station and was on a crew, um, they were like, "No, this is kind of bullshit for you to have to do this and not get paid. Like, let's see what we can do." And so they went to the fire chief and they were like, "Hey, can we donate our vacation days to him?" And so, yeah, guys from the department donated their own vacation days,
Man.
so that I could still get paid while I was riding a bike across the country. And which, like, almost like, I mean, it when they told me that they were doing that, it, like, brought me to tears. I got emotional because these are guys, like, I've only worked with these
That's
guys for, like, 2
brotherhood.
months. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's
brotherhood,
brotherhood.
that's that camaraderie, and it just solidified that I was in the right place because that's what I had been searching for since 2015 when I left the Army.
Yeah.
And without asking for it, they showed it to me, and, so shout out to those guys at St. George Fire Department. Thank you. And yeah, man, life now is like daily I'm reassured that I'm exactly where I need to be. Yeah. So that was a really long-winded answer to the intro of this
No,
podcast.
dude. It's the, it's the best fucking podcast I've had. No, no, no freaking disrespect to any guest I've had recently, but fuck, dude. Like, if you're listening to it, that like, there's a reason why I'm like, I am 100% relaxed in this moment, just enjoying this connection, brother, because that's a testament. That's a journey. Like I said, it's I don't know if you're a man of faith. I don't know what your beliefs are, but that is a walking testament of trusting in a higher power and not giving up. Even when you wanted to give up, he kept showing up and letting you know, like, hey, it ain't your fucking time. I need you for something greater. People need you.
So, it's funny you asked like about believing in a higher power. Because this came up actually early this morning. I worked all day yesterday and got off at 7 a.m. this morning. And about 5 a.m. So I believe in a higher power, but I haven't been like spiritual with it. Like I just think it's naive to think that we're the only ones out there and that there's not a big picture. Um, but I don't have like strict parameters on what that is. I'm to be honest, like I don't go to church. I grew up Catholic going to church a lot, but for some other reasons, kind of separated from that over the years. But I do still believe in a higher power. But this morning, at about 4 a.m., we got called to a cardiac arrest, and we went and worked this patient for probably 40 minutes, and ultimately they ended up passing. We never got a heartbeat back on them. Um, and there was tons of family at the house when we were there in the room while we're working on them. Uh, which is always kind of uncomfortable because like if you've ever seen like full on like CPR on a cardiac arrest patient, it's not a pretty thing to watch. We're shoving all sorts of tubes in their throat. We've got this machine strapped to their chest that's just caving their chest in the whole time. And so it's stressful when there's family in there and we're doing this, but about 25, 30 minutes into it, I think it was the patient's sister came in and was kneeling down right next to me and praying and just had like a death grip on my thigh while I'm sitting there doing bag ventilations. And she's crying and praying and just grabbing onto my thigh. Well, we called it. We get back to the station, and something hit me that had never hit me in the past. This wasn't my first cardiac patient since I started this job, or cardiac arrest since I started this job. Um, but you could tell that this family had faith, and they were all praying over the course of the 40 minutes that we were working her. And and I was like, you know what? What? It doesn't take a lot of effort for me to say a prayer for that family right now. Whether I believe in what they believe in or not, I said, let me just take a couple minutes and say a prayer for her passing over and for the family. And yeah, I don't know what made me do that because it's never struck me before, but maybe it was just the way they were praying and the way that they were grabbing on to me and like I'm kind of focused on what I'm doing, but they may have been praying that I can do the best at my job to hopefully save them. So it doesn't take anything away from me to say a prayer for them and their loved one that just passed away. So I don't know, maybe I am becoming a man of faith in this job. This job has a way of bringing things out to you that you don't expect, you know. Um, so yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up because this morning, as I was leaving work, I was like, "Oh, that was weird that I did that because I don't usually do that." Yeah. So while
Yeah.
how things
World,
happen,
everything happens for a reason, man. And I I walked away from my faith for a long time. I was not
yeah,
connected to it until I went through my own challenges. And one day my wife got in the car and she was going to mass, and I wasn't going to let her go alone. And one day led to another, and then that led to praying the rosary, being dedicated to my faith. And if anything, what really sold it to me was I started going to church and being, a practicing Catholic again. And then I got met with something that really rocked me. And it was a shock to my system. And I felt offended and I felt betrayed by God. I was like, I'm doing this. I'm going back to church, and you're gonna deny me this? Like, you're gonna take away this one thing that I wanted to do? And in that moment I realized, like, oh, wait a second. Like, that's how my faith works. If I don't get something that I want, I walk away. And
yeah,
like, wow. Like, and for I've shared this before, but it was we were wanting to have a family. And after paying tons and tons of money for a fertility doctor, because it's not covered by the VA, it
sure,
was told I was by a really cold asshole doctor that I didn't have the facilities to make it happen. It wasn't gonna be for me. Literally in a really fucked up way. Just said like there's no chance it will ever happen for you. And I got really, really bitter and I got really angry. And I just remember being that sad, angry, little version of me wanting to say, well, fuck it, I'm not gonna go to church. And luckily, the next morning I go on a walk and I realized, like, is that how my faith is supposed to work? The
yeah,
moment something is inconvenient and is not meant to happen for me, I'm gonna just walk away. Probably not the best version of myself. This isn't who I want to be. And I just remembered realizing, like, wow, okay, so it doesn't happen that way for me. Or maybe I just need to pray. Maybe I need. You ever thought about that, Denny? And I realized, and I talked to my wife through it, and I divulged to her how shitty it felt. And then we made the decision to, hey, you know what? Like, if it's for us, if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen, and we're gonna pray. We're gonna
mhm,
pray. I'm not gonna stress about a surgery. I'm gonna reach out to a doctor I do trust and get his recommendation. And ultimately, it was Dr. Mark Gordon, amazing human being. He didn't give me pharmaceuticals. He didn't give me an injection or a plan of action for surgery. It was the opposite. We're going to come off all this medication, and here's the nutrients. Here's what you're going to actually focus on putting in your body. It wasn't Western medication. It wasn't anything crazy. It was lots of prayer and removal of shit I was taking tons of medications. And a year later, we had our daughter.
Oh,
And that's when I
man.
realized, like, it's not fucking up to me. And if I'm going to sit there and be so petty and be so angry when I'm not met with absolutely everything I'm asking for at the moment and not looking at the opportunities he's already given me and have patience and trust in his plan, then I'm not a really good fucking Catholic. I'm not a really good fucking man, am I? It's not about my time. It's not about me. It's just having faith. It's just
Yeah.
being willing to go on a journey and just being open to saying, hey, where there's a will, there's a way. And if it's not this way, I'll be a dad somehow. And I was like, we're blessed. We're absolutely blessed. And I'm so grateful for that moment of being a shitty, faithless individual, because I can reflect back on that moment, how shitty it felt. But I can go back and actually look back and when I made that decision to say, you know what? I'm going to get over this shit. I'm going to stop being a petty dipshit and I'm going to have faith again. I'm going to trust. That's ultimately all we have to do. We just have to get over ourselves sometimes and just say, hey, you know what? God's proved to me he's been there. And then whatever being, whatever power you believe in, have faith and look at your journey. And bro, your journey is fucking insane. What you shared with us today is a testament of, like, not only what you can go through and bounce back from, but ultimately that's proof that your mission's not over. Like
Yeah.
your journey in inspiring others into helping all of us see that after getting knocked down once, twice, 3 fucking times, 4 times, make the decision to get back up. Like, you could have clocked out at any moment, but you didn't. You stayed,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. And that's, yeah. I mean, I love being a firefighter, but I'm going to learn from the past, with being a Green Beret. I let that kind of become my only purpose and
Yeah,
my identity. And when that stopped, that leaves you with a huge hole to fill. Um, and I'm not gonna let that happen again. And so while I am a firefighter and I enjoy being a firefighter and I love the guys that I work with, I also am gonna have a purpose outside of that. And that's why we're here today, is to share my lowest points and how I overcame those, because if we don't talk about that, if we keep that, whether it's because of shame or whatever, if we keep that to ourselves and we don't talk about how we made it out through the other side, then we're just leaving the next guy to fail. And
absolutely.
so that's what I identify my purpose as today is, you know, I've had some shitty moments and some things that I'm ashamed of, but I've gotten past that. And what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for anybody, but it might work for somebody. And I'm going to share that in hopes, because I know that there are other people that are going to find themselves in the same situations. And if it helps somebody, then you know,
Yeah, it will,
job
man. Like,
and success.
yeah, I'm very, 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 very lucky to have come across you. Jerry, if you're listening, thank you for bringing Zach into my sphere and to making this happen, because brother, like, your journey is insane, and the bicycle, the endurance stuff, that's just the superficial icing on the cake. The entirety of your journey, everything you've gone through, is a testament to what we can all go through. Maybe it's not, hopefully not everybody goes through these trials and tribulations of surgeries and pain and
Right.
trauma, but if you find yourself going through something difficult that's remarkably similar to this, know that you can endure. Know that you can make it through it.
For sure.
There's so much to this journey that I'm just so grateful for you to come on and share. But I'm more excited about what's in the horizon for you, man. What else is going on in your life?
Man, so I just finished that last bike ride about 2 weeks ago. And I am looking forward to a little bit of like normalcy,
Yeah.
because between the fire academy and training and planning for that whole ride, because it was fully self-supported. So we were carrying everything on our
Shit.
bikes, like all of our camping gear, all of our food, all of our water, everything for the entirety of it. So there was a lot of like logistical planning, studying maps, figuring out where there were places we could resupply, buy food, fill water, camp, all that stuff. There's the whole planning process, and there's the training process of riding 100 plus miles a day for 27 days. And now I'm excited to I'm still a baby firefighter. I'm still a probie. I think I'm the oldest probie in Louisiana. Uh, so I'm excited to really focus on learning that job, hanging out, and just taking it easy for a minute. And I'm sure something will come up again. That eventually I'll get some wild hair up my ass and be like, I'm gonna go right up.
Well, if anybody could do it, it'd be you. I know for
Yeah.
a fact.
But I know that something will come up eventually. But for right now, I am just gonna focus on the career, um, and sharing everything, talking about the ride. We're still fundraising for the two nonprofits that I for. So I'll shoot you that information if you don't
Yes,
mind
please.
sharing
Yeah,
it. Um, and yeah, so we're gonna focus on some fundraising. We're gonna focus on some firefighting and just enjoying life and sharing my lessons learned and helping some other people along the way.
absolutely, brother. That's the best thing
Yeah,
we can do. We
yeah.
all deserve to just have a little bit of normalcy in this crazy and chaotic world. And everybody listening, do me a favor right now. Go ahead and pause the episode. Head on over to the episode description. Click those links, specifically those taking you to the nonprofits that Zach mentioned that are helping people today. Zach, if people want to get a hold of you and just reach out to you, where can they go and find you on social media?
On Instagram, ZACK door, Zach next door.
Nice.
OnlyFans I'm kidding.
Hey, it's 2025. If you don't have an OnlyFans for supplemental income, I don't know what you're doing. I have one. It's if you go to OnlyFans, look up for Petite Feet 76. Specialize in foot pics. That's how I make this happen. Ladies and gentlemen, watch. There's somebody's OnlyFans. It's actually Petite
Somebody's
Feet
Googling this
76.
right now. Yeah. Whoever they are, we're pretty excited that you just said that.
I'm making somebody money today, man. Oh, Zach, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share your story to help somebody else that's out there that may need it today. Because our suffering is not unique to us. It's one of the most human things. It's part of the human condition. If I'm sucking, somebody out there is sucking just as bad, if not worse. Not in the ways that you would in OnlyFans. I'm talking about, going through something tough. It's life. Life's about suffering. And those moments in between when we're not, those are awesome. And we got to celebrate those too. So if you're out
Absolutely.
there and you're having a bad day, pause and take a little bit of inspiration from Zach's journey and understand that this too shall pass. Tomorrow is a new day. You'll succeed again. Like our creed, the Green Beret creed says, live to succeed again. I hope you all can borrow a little bit of motivation from that. Your failures are not set in stone. You can recover. You can bounce back from anything. Almost anything. It's reference to somebody right now in our current pop culture, in our veteran community, that is still suffering from his own follies and his own issues from unintentionally profiting off made up sci-fi war stories. Oh man, love digging that
Ego,
guy.
ego is a killer.
It is the
Ego.
greatest thing. It keeps paying off for all of us in the meme war space. It's great. That's all. That's all. I'll end this episode reminding all of you that the greatest thing you can do is be of service to others. So please go out there, help somebody out today. Be good to each other. I'm Deny Caballero. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time. Till then, take care. Security Halt Podcast is proudly sponsored by Titan's Arms. Head to the episode description and check out Titan's Arms today.